So, the new episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes is out, and I am here to break it down and review it and tell you everything that you've missed. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and here is My Hero Academia Vigilantes breakdown and review of episode 4. And there's a lot that we really need to go over in this episode, so let's just dive right into it. So, to start off, the episode titled Top Runner takes partial name inspiration from Manga Chapter 7 titled Runner. And this episode covers most of Chapters 6 and 7 with some interesting cuts. And one of the cuts can be seen at the beginning of the episode with the three stern Brang brothers swiping women's panties. However, this sequence is significantly trimmed down in the anime, only including the brothers' first attack, immediately followed by Knuckle Duster taking them out. The manga also had some of the brothers targeting more victims, and Koichi initially being confused by civilians to be one of them because his quirk is similar to the brothers' quirks, whose quirk is glide and slide. Pretty much the exact opposite of Koichi's, which is most likely the intended effect. Also, Koichi talked to the brothers about their similar quirks, as well as the brothers explaining their ideology of swiping panties, is also cut for very good reason. This is a very interesting cut that the anime made, but I think that it's for the better because this is something that was more used for comedic effect and was a little bit more fluffy than actual substance in the manga chapter and would not convey the same type of urgency that this episode is trying to convey, so I'm glad that it was kind of cut. But while this scene is going on, Koichi does notice something is off about Knuckle Duster. We also get a new scene that is alluded in the manga, which is Jubei telling Koichi about Knuckle Duster, mentioning of a quote B user, and how that is shown in the anime but is only talked about in the manga. So this really just shows how much the anime is just adding from the manga and showing that it is a real adaptation, taking stuff that they don't think that is very conducive to the flow of the anime while also expanding on stuff that was very important in the manga that was kind of glossed over. But switching more to the episode proper, after the OP, Koichi and Knuckle Duster are training, and Koichi notices something is off with Knuckle Duster, as Koichi also realizes that he is not meant to be a brawler and that he should find his own way of helping, to which Knuckle Duster agrees with. And this is very important because this small interaction between Koichi, Knuckle Duster, and Pop Step really instills what Koichi is going to be doing and how his fighting style is going to be changing over time throughout the series. And how this conversation actually ties into a sort of resolution of what Koichi is going to be doing in fights later on with the second part of this episode when he's introduced to another speedster, which is the conclusion that this episode brings and ties together, that Koichi shouldn't be a mainline fighter, but should focus more on speed and agility. And we could see this flow more into the fight that Knuckle Duster has with another instant villain. And that's something else that the episode pretty much establishes in this episode. And that's something else that I need to talk about when it comes to the series of Vigilantes. Because after the scene with Koichi and Knuckle Duster training, we cut over to Queen talking on the phone with their boss about their goals for the instant villains, collecting data. And this is something that isn't brought up now, but brought up later on, most likely in the anime as well as the manga. But the organization that the Vigilantes are going to be fighting is called the Villain Factory, and that they are gathering data using this new trigger drug to create instant villains. And that's what the villains are that pop up randomly using their quirks wildly with the black tongues. But that's not the important part about this scene, because something else that if you've noticed by hearing it in the anime, because if you notice when listening to the anime and the person that she's speaking to, it's very clear that the individual that she's speaking to is All For One, which is important because this is something that we learn later on in the manga, but is hinted at here, but is only confirmed later. Basically, we get the confirmation that All For One is the boss of the Villain Factory now, versus we learn this information much later in the manga. So not only does this development just concretely show that Vigilantes is directly tied to the My Hero Academia manga canon, but also really shows the importance of having manga like this adapted to anime to hint at things that were only alluded to and could not be confirmed due to the medium of manga being pictures without sound and music. And music is very important in anime because a lot of music used in Vigilantes is also used in My Hero Academia proper, showing that they are also connected. For instance, talking about a little bit later, Tenya Ida appears in the episode, and during his transforming sequence and his conversations with Koichi, a similar track plays in Vigilantes that would play in My Hero Academia proper when pro heroes are giving inspirational speeches or when inspirational speeches are being given by pro heroes.
命に関わる状況では誰もが不安でいっぱい。迷子の子供と同じさ。
So that's something else that you want to keep your eye on when you're listening to the music in the anime of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. But going more into what we get with Queen's encounter, she actually encounters a random drug addict named Chuma. And this encounter between Queen and Chuna is altered in the anime. Because in the manga, Queen shows him a briefcase containing several samples of Trigger, which Chuma grabs some of them and injects himself with. But in the anime, there is no briefcase, and it's Queen who injects him with Trigger. This still leads to Chuma Yakumaru rampaging and having to be stopped by Koichi and Knuckle Duster. And when it comes to the fight, this is probably the best fight in the series so far, with great choreography and fluid motion in how Knuckle Duster is able to bob and weave through the punches, as well as the punches being landed on Chuma by Knuckle Duster. This is probably some of the best fight sequences and animation that we've seen in My Hero Academia, both in the Vigilantes and main series, which really just shows how much time and love is actually being thrown into Vigilantes when it comes to the animation and trying to make it the best that it could be. Even wanted to point out how the anime even adds to Chuma's attacks with more of an electric aura in comparison to what we get in the manga, which is just electricity and a slight glow. They really emphasize the power in the anime versus what we got in the manga. So I really enjoy how the anime is adding to this fight sequence with a lot more oomph and impact. But it is a shame that they do cut Chuma cursing up a storm from the manga and not adding it to the anime. But he does say one curse word, so that's good enough. So as the first half of the episode ends with the fight returning Knuckle Duster back to his normal self, we see Queen taking on another random man to participate in her data collection, really just showing how much of an antagonist that she's going to be and how she's always working in the sidelines to create even more chaos. And while not as chaotic, the second half does focus on a very fun bat villain and the return of the hero Ingenium, and how this part of the episode starts with a sequence of the bat villain being chased by Tensei like in the manga. However, the anime adds a scene of Tensei suiting up at his starting up running sequence that is not in the manga explicitly and is animated spectacularly. And I love how they're able to animate how the vehicle that he's on is able to put on the armor meticulously, as well as the fun backflip off the bus that he does. And while he's unfortunately unable to catch the bat villain at this moment, we do then cut over to the first interaction that Tensei has with Koichi. And in the scene, we have Koichi fanboying over Tensei and discussing how Koichi can use his quirk to help him break better. However, there is some changes and cuts from the manga to the anime, such as more of Koichi's inner dialogue is cut that helps explain his world more and fleshes it out more in the manga versus what we get in the anime. And in the anime, they actually cut Koichi apologizing to Tensei for using his quirk without permission shortly after meeting him. However, the anime does do something fun that I do enjoy, which is expanding the flashback sequence of Tensei remembering his brother trying to learn how to stop. So yes, while the anime does change and alter things from the manga to the anime, it does add and expand on stuff, once again, really just showing how good of an adaptation this actually is. But speaking more on the conversation that Koichi has with Tensei, they do discuss about the importance of saving people in a hurry, aka with speed. and how this is an important part of being a hero as Tensei tries to recruit Koichi to his team. And like I said, this ties to the more overarching development that Koichi goes through in this episode, which is Koichi learning that his best quality to fighting off the villains is his speed and agility, and he gets even faster and learns how to use it better thanks to Tensei. And Tensei even applies that knowledge that he conveyed to Koichi in this episode once again when he's chasing after the bad villain. But even with that, unfortunately, we do get another cut interaction with Koichi expressing his joy towards Pop Step as well as Knuckle Duster when he's cooking, which I think is probably the most unfortunate cut because it actually cuts out a fun interaction between these three main leads. It really just shows how much of a more family-friendly unit that they are becoming as the episodes progress, which is a shame, but it made more time for more additions to the chase scene with Tensei and the Bat Villain. Because as we cut to the last part of the episode, as Tensei tries to capture the Bat Villain with more speed as well as his team working together, fortunately the Bat Villain escapes because, you know, he's a bat. He has wings. He eventually is able to fly away, which explains how he was able to evade them for so long. However, the anime shows Tenya's team, Team Idaten, chasing after the Bat Villain, and this scene is expanded more in the anime than it was in the manga, giving all of his side characters a little bit more to do in the chase. And right before Tensei believes that he's unable to capture the Bat Villain, he notices a blur chasing after the Bat Villain, which is shown later on to be Koichi tripping the Bat Villain and Knuckle Duster beating him down due to the fact that they were able to maneuver so well around this area because they know it so well. And so the anime and the manga pretty much end in the same way, with Koichi revealing his identity to Tensei and later on them jogging together at the end where Tensei requests his business card that he gave Koichi back, but realizing that he has already found his calling as they begin friendly jogging down the way. And this just really shows the interactions and the connection that Koichi and Tensei built, not necessarily as heroes, but also just as fun friends and jogging buddies, which I loved in the series. But yeah, that's pretty much my entire breakdown and review of this episode. I think that this may be one of the best episodes of the season so far, and pretty much is showing how streamlined this season is going to be with the manga chapters of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. So, let me ask you this. What did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? And what was your favorite part? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!